what are we going around here? So The Dirt. I recently saw it. Actually, I saw it as soon as... I mean, not that soon. But I saw it this past Friday. Of course, on Netflix. And so, you know, then I took a couple days to allow some of the scenes to really sink in. And I did a little bit of research as far as just kind of looking at excerpts from the book that it's based on of the same title. And it's a pretty decent movie. I will admit, it didn't blow me away. Nothing really surprised me that much. Although, in the beginning of the movie, I recall there was at least one scene that, I mean, I didn't find it, I found it like maybe kind of somewhat shocking. I don't want to give it away, obviously, you know, if you haven't seen it, but has to do with, you know, it's a certain scene with a particular woman who's there, and I guess in a hotel room somewhere, I guess, you know, one of the many groupies they met while on tour, and she did this particularly interesting thing, and I guess like what she did didn't really shock me. It was more like, it shocked me that, you know, they had a scene like that. I mean, I was surprised that they had a scene like that within like the first 10-15 minutes of the movie. But then I realized, you know, it's Netflix, and there's a lot of plenty of other movies too where they get away with a whole lot more. So yeah, I guess, you know, initially it just surprised me somewhat. But other than that, like, the rest of the movie didn't really surprise me at all. Of course, I like that it starts with Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx is, of course, a bass player, and also one of the founding members of the band. And so it starts with this, you know, it shows him when he's a young boy, and the fact that he grew up without his father. For whatever reason, his father left him and his mother to fend for themselves. And, you know, eventually his father remarried, I guess, started a whole other family. Pretty much just didn't give a shit about him. But then, of course, you know, Nikki Sixx, when he was a little boy, he got into rock music and got his first electric guitar, played and all that. And of course, all this time, you know, throughout his childhood, he didn't have a good, healthy relationship with his mother. His mother seemed to be more concerned with finding another guy to marry her or something along those lines. And so, which of course, you know, caused a lot of strife and struggle for both him and his mother. So then eventually, you know, he moves out, or rather, yeah, I guess technically runs away, and becomes a lot more serious about making it as a musician. And he meets, of course, Tommy Lee, the drummer, and yeah, they start just jamming together, practicing together. I like, there's one scene where they shows them when, I guess, they were auditioning guitar players, and the first guy, or at least the guy that is shown in this movie, I don't know if it, you know, things actually transpired the way they're shown in this movie. That's another thing too. I mean, I guess I would say, you if there's any kind of complaint, not just from me, but from any Motley Crue fan or just fan of these kinds of movies in general, is that usually when it comes to these kinds of movies, not just this one, but a lot of others, obviously, certain liberties are often taken and a lot of things are omitted, a lot of details are changed, mostly to help ensure that, nobody ends up coming out of the woodwork and trying to sue anybody. So, yeah. But anyways, in this one particular scene, so it shows like this one guitar player, and he's trying to learn a particular riff that I guess Nikki Sixx had come up with. It ends up becoming like one of the main riffs for Motley Crue's song Live Wire, which is one of my favorite songs by them. And so I guess like one of like the first, if not the first, I guess one of the first guitar players at the audition, and this guy is trying to learn, he's trying to play it, and he's not able to play it because he's not used to playing anything fast, I guess. Yeah. So he struggles with it. And then Tommy Lee, like Nikki Sixx tells Tommy Lee, are you sure this guy can play it, or something like that. And Tommy Lee says, he's like, yeah, man, he's cool, he'll get it, we just need once we get a lead guitar player, then it'll sound a lot better. And so they're like, okay. And then eventually that's when they find Mick Mars. And of course, Mick Mars, he's supposed to be, I guess, considerably older than Tommy Lee and Nikki Sixx. But, of course, right away when he goes to audition for them, he already has a lot more experience. And he pretty much blows away the other guitar player, the guy that was struggling to play that guitar riff. Mick Mars was able to play the guitar riff no problem. And on top of that, he was able to improvise an awesome guitar solo, or at least he tried. That's when the other guitar player yelled out, and he complained that he wasn't able to keep up pretty much. So they kicked him out, and Mick Mars became their main guitar player, permanent guitar player. And then after that, eventually, they found Vince Neil. Vince Neil was singing in a cover band at the time, and he was just wallowing in all of the attention he was getting from all the beautiful young women who were fawning over him. I guess just because he was able to sing a lot of their favorite songs or something. That always seems to be the case with cover bands, or especially cover bands who have even just a somewhat good-looking lead singer, and that's what I've noticed, based on my experience with being a musician. So they convinced Vince Neil to audition for them, and he does. And then another scene which I liked, of course, of Vince Neil, he's first attempts to sing the lyrics for the song Live Wire, and I guess because originally they, Mick Mars and Nikki Sixx, they played in, I want to say, standard tuning. Of course, this is when some of the technical stuff comes in, as far as, if you're not a musician, if you're not familiar with a lot of technical terms, as far as when it comes to tuning an instrument, or, when a song is in a particular key, or, pretty much, Vince Neil, he tried to sing it in a high register, and it was sounding a little off. So then Mick Mars told Nikki Sixx, he said, let's tune down and then try it again, something to that effect. So then once they did that, then Vince Neil was able to sing. He was able to keep up with the tempo, but also he was able to sing lower register, and then it ended up sounding a lot better overall. So, yeah. I don't know, for me, I like that they show that, because pretty much that was like the only technical aspect of the movie. I don't recall seeing anything else like it. They showed her, there's plenty of scenes when they were in the studio recording stuff, and but even with that, like when they had different scenes of them in the studio, they didn't get very technical with that. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess, another thing, I kind of I thought maybe they were gonna get a little more technical as far as when it comes to the musician aspect of it. And, pretty much, obviously this movie focused a lot more on their lives, and, how they related to one another and what they did while on tour. Of course, obviously sex, drugs, and rock and roll, everything else in between, obviously. One thing I thought, which I didn't think they were going to show in this movie, but again, after I thought about it, it made sense that they did show it, because it's called The Dirt. But, like Vince Neil, at least when they were on tour, possibly even off tour as well, but when they were on tour, he actually ended up having sex with one of Tommy Lee's girlfriends at the time. And even right before they were getting ready to play, getting ready for a show. And I thought that was definitely a dick move. Very, what's the word? Vidouche. It's just a very overall dick move. And but again, once after I thought about it for a while, I realized that there's a lot of unfortunately there are a lot of lead singers out there who are assholes, and yeah. So yeah. And and then of course the scene where they show him, Vince Neil, he was in this terrible car accident, and the guy that was with him, he went by the name Razzle. I don't want to say he was I know he was another musician. I want to say guitar player for another band. I want to say it was another band from the 80s called something like Saigon Kick or something. Saigon Kick. But I don't know, I could be wrong. But yeah, that guy, Razzle, because they went on a liquor run, and Vince was already pretty drunk and high or stoned or whatever, and that guy Razzle, he got killed. And of course Vince Neil, he only did 30 days in jail, I believe, something like that. So I guess which is surprising because nowadays, if that were to happen, something like that were to happen today, I imagine there'd be a whole lot of people upset over something like that, and they'd be saying that, he deserves way more than 30 days in jail. But back then, I guess, I don't know, I guess in the 80s, it was pretty common, I guess. I don't know, I guess I kind of think like back then, anytime like people would see a rock star in court or whatever, people would just kind of like shrug it off, shake their heads and then just like pretty much forget about it. Which to me it really says something about the times, says something about the 80s that, people were aware of all this decadence going on, all this partying going on, as far as, when it came to like the nightlife and rock bands and just the music scene in general. So even though, people were aware that all of that was going on, for the most part, they just either accepted it or they didn't accept it, but they just preferred to just ignore it as much as possible. So, and then of course, everything else that's in this movie, I feel like they most likely stretched out, like added a whole bunch of, again, not so much added, but changed details around. And so the other scene I like was the one where it has Ozzy, and because I remember hearing about the Motley Crue, they toured with Ozzy, and I guess at one of the hotels they were staying at, they were hanging out by the pool area, and Ozzy came out, and and it was back when Ozzy, was big into drugs, like, he did pretty much any drug he could get his hands on. So Ozzy came out and he saw, the guys in Motley Crue hanging out by the pool. Ozzy came out to join them, and then he asked them, if they had any coke that he could snort, and they told him, no, we're sorry, Oz, we're all out. So then Ozzy still, like, he got a straw, I forget, like, he pulled a straw out of his robe or something, or he took a straw from someone's drink, and he saw a line of ants, like red ants that were crawling kind of close to the pool. Ozzy got down on his hands and knees and snorted up the line of ants. And, I actually believe that. In fact, I would say if there's any scene that I'm certain of, to be the truth, I would say it's that scene. Ozzy snorting a line of ants. Definitely seems like something he would have done back then. Also kind of seems like something he might do now. Although, I guess, nowadays he's pretty much given up on all of that. But back then in the 80s, oh yeah, I definitely believe it. But then, of course, like today when Ozzy, because I saw an interview a couple of days ago, and Ozzy, someone asked him about that, if that was true. And in fact, I think they asked him about it back when the book came out. And they asked him if he actually did snort a line of ants. And supposedly Ozzy said that, he has no recollection of it. But then, he also doesn't remember a whole lot of other things from the 80s. So, yeah. And then there's another part in that scene had to do with, drinking someone's urine, and and I won't say more than that, because it's kind of like you got to see it to believe it. And so, but like I said, for me, when it comes to Ozzy, I believe that, I do believe he was in fact that crazy during the 80s. I don't know about any other time in his life, but definitely during the 80s. So, yeah. Like, here's overall, I guess I should talk a little bit about the ending. I mean, as far as the ending goes, it was alright. It doesn't really end, of course. It's just, like, ends how you would expect it to end. And of course, yeah, I like that it does show the fact that each band member struggled with their own addictions, and they struggled to get clean, struggled to get sober. Like a lot of bands from that era. But yeah, and another thing I found interesting too was because Nikki Sixx, he's done, I don't know how much like press he's done for this movie, but one thing I found interesting, he mentioned in an interview that when they first started, any time like they would do something terrible, like say they would trash a hotel room, or they'd get arrested for getting drunk and urinating in public or something. Anytime they got arrested for something, it was like they ended up selling more records, and so the different executives from the record label, instead of telling them to stop doing all this crazy stuff, they would just like get a pat on the back because they would sell more records. So it was like pretty much they were encouraged to be as crazy as they possibly could be. Yeah, I mean, that's what Nikki Sixx said. So, in fact, I would say, yeah, that's a pretty good way to sum up, the bulk of their career. I mean, as far as what motivated them to continue living that wild rock and roll lifestyle. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say it was like the main reason for it, but it was as far as reasons go, definitely would make sense that it would be one of the biggest reasons. So, yeah. I don't know, that's what I think. Of course, this is all just my own opinion, so overall, as far as the rating goes, I'm going to give The Dirt, I guess I give it 8 out of 10, 8.5, I guess, yeah. 8.5 at the most, out of 10, so, yeah. I don't know, I didn't mean for this review to go on so long, but, hey, in fact, I think, like, I could probably think of a whole lot more stuff to talk about, but, yeah. I'll cut this off. So, yeah, so that'll do it for my review of The Dirt. Let me know if you've seen it, what you thought about it. Once again, I give it 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for listening. As always, till next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.